of Microeconomics Chapter 1. Our only goal today? To make sure you understand every single concept so you can nail this section in the CUET exam. We're aiming for a perfect score, so let's jump right in.
Seriously, think about it for a second. You want to binge watch that new series, but you also have to study for a test. You want to buy those cool new sneakers, but you've only got enough money for the video game you've been waiting for. That feeling, that constant need to choose, well, that is the very heart of economics. It all starts right there.
So here's our game plan for today. We're going to walk through these 6 sections one step at a time. We'll build up your knowledge from the absolute basics. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll be more than ready for any question this chapter throws at you in CUET. Okay, let's start with the big one. This is the single most important idea in all of economics. I'm not kidding. Every single thing we're going to talk about today and in future chapters all comes back to this one simple problem.
It's really this simple, right? We, as humans, want endless things. But the stuff we need to get those things, money, time, raw materials, people to do the work, all of that is limited. This basic conflict, this mismatch between our infinite wants and our finite resources, has a name: scarcity. And it's the entire reason we even have a subject called economics.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. This is straight from your NCERT textbook. It says everyone faces this problem. It doesn't matter if you're a student with a little pocket money or the government trying to manage a massive national budget. Scarcity is universal, and because of it, we are all forced to make choices.
Okay, now listen up. This is important. This is where the CUET examiner will try to trick you. First, they'll give you an option that says scarcity is only a problem for the poor. That is absolutely false. A billionaire might have all the money in the world, but they still only have 24 hours in a day. Time is a scarce resource for everyone. Second trap, they'll try to make you think scarcity is just about physical stuff, like food or cars. Wrong again. It also applies to services. Think about it. There's a limited number of skilled doctors or great teachers. Don't you dare fall for these traps.
So, because this problem of scarcity is everywhere, every single society, I don't care if it's a small tribe or a huge country, has to answer 3 basic fundamental questions. These are what we call the central problems of an economy. First up, what are we going to make? And how much of it? Should our country focus on building more luxury cars? Or should we produce more food for everyone? More weapons for defense or more schools and hospitals? Second, how are we going to make it? Should we use lots of people, labor-intensive methods to create jobs? Or should we use advanced machines and robots for maximum efficiency? And finally, the third big question: for whom do we produce this stuff? How do we slice up the economic pie? Should everyone get an equal share? Or should people who work harder get more? Every economic system you'll ever study is just a different way of trying to answer these 3 questions. So it's one thing to talk about scarcity and choice, but how can we actually see it? Well, economists came up with a really clever graph for this. It's called the Production Possibility Frontier, or PPF for short. Think of it as a map of our choices. Let's imagine a super simple economy that can only produce 2 things: corn and cotton. Now, look at this table. It shows all the possible combinations it could make if it used all its resources perfectly. At point A, if they pour everything into cotton, they can make 10 units, but that means 0 corn. At the other extreme, point E, they go all in on corn, getting 4 units, but then they get 0 cotton. Everything in between, like points B, C, and D, represents a trade-off. And if we take those points from the table and plot them on a graph, we get this curve. This line is the Production Possibility Frontier. It's like a boundary line. It shows the absolute maximum an economy can produce. It's a beautiful, simple picture of the limits we face because of scarcity. Now, the PPF does something even cooler than just showing limits. It gives us a picture of a super important concept. Look at the curve again. To move from making less corn to making more corn, we have to give up some cotton, right? That sacrifice, that thing you have to give up to get something else, is called opportunity cost. It's the cost of the next best alternative you didn't choose. The PPF shows this trade-off perfectly. Okay, get ready. This is a classic CUET question area. You need to know this cold. Any point on the curve itself, like A, B, or C, means the economy is being perfectly efficient. No waste. Any point inside the curve means there's a problem. Maybe people are unemployed or factories are sitting idle. Resources are being wasted. And what about a point outside the curve? Well, that's the dream, but it's impossible. It's unattainable with the resources and technology we currently have.
So we know every society has to answer those three big questions. But who actually does the answering? This brings us to the different ways economies can be set up or organized.
Think of it like two opposite ends of a spectrum. On one end, you have the centrally planned economy. Here, the government is the boss. A central authority decides what gets made, how it's made, and who gets it. The stated goal is usually the welfare of society. On the complete opposite end, you have the market economy. There is no central boss here. Instead, millions of individual people and businesses make their own decisions. And what guides them? Prices. Price changes are like signals that tell producers what people want more or less of.
But here's the reality check. In the real world, you can't find a pure example of either one. It's just not that black and white. In reality, all economies are mixed economies. They take some elements from the market system and mix them with some government planning and intervention. The only real difference between countries is the recipe for that mix. A country like India is a perfect example of a mixed economy, where both the market and the government play very important roles. All right, we've covered the what, the why, and the who. For our last big concept, let's talk about how economists actually study all this stuff. They basically have two different pairs of glasses they can put on to analyze the world. First up, positive versus normative economics. Positive economics is all about facts. It describes the world as it is. A statement like, if the government prints more money, it will cause inflation, is a positive statement. It's a claim that we can test with data. Now, normative economics is about opinions. It describes how the world ought to be. A statement like, the government should provide free education to all, is normative. See that keyword, should? That's your clue that it's a value judgment, not a testable fact. The second pair of lenses is microeconomics versus macroeconomics. And my favorite way to remember this is the trees versus the forest analogy. Microeconomics, which is what this entire book is about, is studying the individual trees. We look at a single consumer's choices, one single company's pricing decisions, or the market for just one product, like coffee. Macroeconomics, on the other hand, is when you step back and look at the entire forest. It deals with the big picture, the unemployment rate for the whole country, the overall inflation rate, the nation's total income.
Okay, deep breath. We've gone through all the major ideas. Now it's time to lock it all in. This is your rapid revision. This is the stuff you absolutely need to have at your fingertips on exam day to get that perfect score. Now pay very close attention. For an exam like CUET, the exact wording from the NCERT book can be the difference between a right and wrong answer. So let's go over these. Goods are physical, tangible things. Services are intangible. Resources are the inputs we use to make other things. And listen to this one carefully. A market is an institution. It's not just a physical place. Knowing these definitions word for word is your secret weapon.
And let's hammer home our trap list one final time. Remember, scarcity is for everyone, rich and poor. Opportunity cost is only about the next best choice you gave up. A point inside the PPF means you're being inefficient, but it's not impossible. A market economy runs on price signals, not a government plan. And finally, positive is facts, what is. Normative is opinions, what should be. Keep these clear in your head and you'll sidestep all the common mistakes.
Okay, I'm going to leave you with one last question to chew on. We talked about the PPF as a boundary, a limit. But what if an economy gets more resources? Say they discover a huge oil field or invent a new super efficient technology. What do you think happens to that production possibility frontier then? Think about that. When you can answer that question, you're officially starting to think like a real economist.